whenever you're ready.
All right. Hi, everyone. As you're popping in, feel free to pop in the chat and let us know where you are joining us from. We're going to let everyone get in and get settled and ready to go before we get started. I hope you guys are all having an awesome day so far. Miami, I see Wisconsin, Florida, Louisiana, New Jersey, ooh, Nebraska. Hi, everyone. Alabama, all the way from Germany. Hello. Oregon. Oh my gosh, you guys are from all over. Yay. Thank you so much, Veronica. California, Florida. I'm on the East Coast and we're having a lot of rain here. I don't know if anybody else is getting the same kind of weather. It's been a dreary sort of day so far. Indiana and Mississippi. Hi, everybody. We'll go ahead and get started here in just a moment. Definitely let me know too if you guys are going to be crafting along with me or if you guys are just observing and hanging out to get the crafty dose in for today. Hi, Mom. From Virginia. I'm from Virginia as well. We might be neighbors. Awesome. Just watching. Perfect. Crafting along with you. Yes. I'm so excited. I can't wait to see what all of you guys are going to create today. I hope you love the projects that we're going to be making. So we'll go ahead and jump right in. So I am Jess Francisco. I manage a YouTube channel called A Card Day's Work. So I mostly do card making and paper crafting. That's kind of my crafty passion. And I've been on this journey for about 6 years now, since I first started doing card making. I really, really love it and it hasn't gotten old for me yet, so I've kind of stuck with it. But yeah, we're going to be doing a little bit of creating with a faux watercolor effect today. And we are going to be using some distress oxides to create those. We're going to make some fall cards and we're going to be doing some really nice techniques with the backgrounds that you can use for all your cards all year round. It doesn't have to just be fall cards. So that's always a good technique in my book if you can use it for a lot of different things throughout the year. Hi again to everyone who's popping in. I do have Patty from Ranger in the chat as well. So if you guys have questions or anything that you guys are wanting to know and I don't see it in the chat, Patty will be there reading the chat and she can let me know if you guys have questions. So don't be shy. Feel free to ask whatever questions you have, and we'll try to get product links out for you as well. If there's specific things that you have questions on, definitely just let us know. So I'm going to go ahead and flip us right down to the desktop view here in just 1 second, and we'll just go ahead and jump right in. All right. Okay. Hopefully you guys can see me okay. And now we transition to the hands portion of the video. So here I have some examples of the products that we the products we're going to be using are up here. We've got our distress oxides up in the corner. And then this is just an idea of what we are going to create today. So we're going to be making some clean and simple greeting cards. These are thank you cards. Using supplies from Michaels and Ranger. So we're going to create this watercolor effect in the background, and then we're going to go ahead and stamp to create this really depth or dimensional look to our project. We're going to go ahead and create some tags as well, but feel free to get creative with this and really just make it your own. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'll move this stuff out of the way. The first thing that we're going to pull out is our Distress Watercolor cardstock. So this is a really thick and sturdy cardstock that is great for using with waters. You'll notice that this actually has a textured side and a smooth side. It's really important that you pick the right side for whatever project you're doing. The smooth side is the one that we're going to be using today. The textured side is great. However, I'll show you what happens if you use the textured side. When you go to stamp, you're not going to get a perfect impression. So this one, I actually did my watercoloring on the the textured side on accident. And you can see here that it's got these lines in it from where the stamp wasn't able to press firmly down into the cardstock. If you like this, that's okay. You can definitely still do this and use it kind of as a technique. But if you want the smooth results like we got from our cards, here, you can see the difference there. So this is using the smooth side. We got a nice crisp impression. And then this was on the textured side. And we've got some marks there where you can still see the cardstock coming through there. I like them both too. I think they're very unique and they're nice in their own way. It just depends on what you're going for. But for me, for today, I want to use the smooth side. You guys can definitely choose and use whichever one works best for you. So when we get our cardstock ready, I like to go ahead and just use the entire sheet rather than making small panels first and then having to do multiple panels at once. So I start off with an entire sheet. I'm going to use my Distress Oxides and I'll bring those down here so that we can see these. While we get started as well, I do want to let you guys know that the class is being recorded right now. So if you guys miss anything, or if you tune in after we've started, or you just missed something that's going on, the class will be available in about 24 hours on the Michael's YouTube channel. And then it will also be in around 48 hours or so, in just a couple days, it will be available to replay on the Michael's website as well. So you guys can definitely tune back in and catch those. So for what we're doing here, we're going to use a craft sheet. You can use anything that you have on your desktop. This basically just protects your work surface and makes it so that your desk doesn't get super dirty. But it also allows the ink to move freely and we get to blend directly on this surface. How are Distress Oxides different from regular ink stamping pads? That's a really good question. So Distress Oxides are sort of a combination of ink types. They're a mix between a pigment ink and, Patty, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe a dye ink as well.
That's correct.
Okay, perfect. So they're a mixture of those two. So they have different properties from both of those. And they kind of sit on top of the paper like a pigment ink does. So you get a more, I compare it to more of like a chalky finish when you ink with these than you would with a regular dye ink. The cool thing about the Distress Oxides is that they react with water, which is what we're taking advantage of today. So when you spray water on them, they do what's called oxidizing, or they oxidate, is that the right word? They oxidize. And basically that means that you get a different effect with the water, and it kind of desaturates that color and gives you a sort of muted tone with that. So we're going to go ahead and smush these directly onto our ink, our craft sheet. Can you get the craft sheets at Michael's? That is a great question. I am not sure. Patty, are you able to help me out? I'm not sure if the craft sheet is currently available at Michael's.
I don't think it is.
Okay. Yeah, I think anything that you have that's on your, like, you could, if you need something to use right now, like if you don't have anything, you can use a spare packaging. Like if you had, like, for example, you could actually use this in the meantime. Yeah, you could use, you could use wax paper or freezer paper. You want something that's not porous that you can use. You could even use a piece of scrap plastic if you don't have anything else. Yep, a glass mat is perfect as well. Yep, absolutely. Because you can smush directly onto these as well, and it will work just as well. So that's perfect. So I've smushed my ink directly on here. I'm actually going to add just a little bit more. You can see that I'm not doing anything fancy here. I'm really just pushing the ink pad directly into the mat and then just leaving it there. So you can see it's got that square imprint from the ink pad. Move that out of the way. I'm going to use a distress sprayer. This is just a water bottle that just sprays out ink. It sprays out water. So it's just clean water that's in here. And we're going to go ahead and spritz it directly onto the inks we've already smushed on to the mat. Now, this is where you get creative and make this your own. You can use as much or as little water as you want. You don't have to use a ton. You don't have to only use a little. So how much water you use is what will determine your end color palette. So you can see here, we've got kind of more muted look. We've got some faded areas here. And some of the other ones are more vibrant. And that just depends on the amount of water that you use. So you can see you can get some more of those bright, vibrant colors if you use less water. So experiment, do what you like best as far as your results go. I like to at least see it sort of bead up on the mat, and that way you can tell that it's ready to be used. What I'm going to do is take my cardstock, make sure I find that smooth side, and then the smooth side is what's going to go directly onto the ink. So I'm just going to literally plop it right down into the ink like that, and then lift it up. And you can see that just that easy, we have beautiful watercolor effects that are happening already. And as this is quite wet, it is sort of running down the page. I absolutely love that. If you don't like it, that's okay. You can kind of keep it more flat, but I like to let it run. I sort of tap it on the side like this. And get those sort of little rivulets going with the different ink colors. I really, really like the way that that ends up looking, and it gives a lot of texture and depth and dimension to your cards that you wouldn't have had if it was just a big blob of color. So once you've done your original pass through, you have a couple of different options. You can either use a heat tool to dry this if you are impatient and you don't want to wait for it to dry by itself. You can air dry it. It doesn't need any sort of added heat. You can just set it aside and get another piece while you've got your ink here and keep creating. You have the option as well to repeatedly stamp or put your paper into the ink to pick up additional colors. So I can see that I want a little bit more orange up here in this area. So I'm going to just turn my paper over right here on this section where I've got my orange, and I'm gonna just press my finger down like that. And then you can see we've added a little bit of orange there as well. And then we can do that all over the mat here, just picking up little bits at a time. Your hands are probably going to get dirty. It's a casualty of crafting, but I think it's worth it. It's always such a pretty result, and we can always wash our hands at the end. But yes, you can go ahead and experiment. If you guys are doing this at the same time with me, feel free to show your results. If you get something that you love, feel free to hold it up and we'll definitely take a look as well. But this part is kind of the magic of the crafting part. It's your personal preference. You keep going until you think it's finished. So it doesn't matter what I think or what anyone else thinks. It's just if you like it, then you know you're done. I have a little bit of a problem knowing when to stop. Sometimes I just keep going and I feel like maybe I should have, left a little more white space or whatever the case may be, but I usually end up liking it in the end anyway. All right, so we've got a nice combination there. I think I do want a little bit more orange. So what I'm going to do, like a little bit more of the darker orange here, I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of extra orange over on this side. Now this color is called Spiced Marmalade. The yellow color that I'm using is Mustard Seed. This one I'm going to leave less wet than the other ones. I'm going to go ahead and just do like a tiny little bit of spray. I don't want to add too much water. And then I'm just going to tap just a little bit. You see how we've got smaller dots here? That's because the water hasn't spread and made it more of the watercolor effect yet. So we've got more of those individual tiny little ink drops. Itty bitty little droplets of ink there that are ready to go. And I love mixing and matching the really loose watercolor effect and this itty bitty dot sort of pattern, because I think that they look so nice when they're added together. So just kind of experiment, see what you like. And if you are more into having control over your artwork, I also do keep a piece of clear plastic next to my craft station as well. And if you have something like that, you can use it to pick it up. You can see a little bit better where you are going to be putting it. And then you can just apply it directly that way. So you have a little bit more control over where that's going rather than flipping the paper over and having to sort of guess where the color is going or hope you get it in the right spot. That gives you a little bit more control over where your color is going to be concentrated. And because it's clear, clear, you can see exactly where you're putting it. And I really, really like that. All right, so I think I'm going to leave this one as is. I'm going to go ahead and set it over here to start drying. I'm going to do another one while we are getting ready here. I've got another piece of my cardstock ready to go. Just remember we're using the smooth side. I'm going to go ahead and just plop it right into this. Very technical terms going on over here. And you can see we've got less ink than we had originally. I'm going to go ahead and just spritz this with a little bit more water. The cool thing about the Distress Oxides is that they kind of just keep going. So if you feel like, oh, you're running out of ink, you can just add a little bit more water and look how much more color we got out of that. So the more water you add, you're going to get a lighter effect. And that way you can kind of get the most out of your inks. Can you use watercolor paint from a palette? Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I think that it would work. I'm not a watercolor expert. I am more limited to ink pad watercolor effects, but I think that it would work the same. You would just get the paint on your brush and then apply it to your surface just like this. And you would end up with a similar result, I think. All right, so I'm going to do my main smooshing. That's my fancy term. I'm not sure where I learned it, but it wasn't invented by me. Somebody else made that one up, but that's the fancy term for what we're doing here, ink smooshing. I'm using wax paper and watercolor. I like, yes, Veronica, that's amazing. I'm so excited to see you guys crafting along at the same time. What I think is the best is that you just get such different results. No two panels are exactly the same. Hi, Dorothy, welcome. Smushing sounds like fun. Yes. Smushing is one of my favorite techniques that I just keep going back to over and over and over again. I absolutely love it. The results are just so pretty. And then when you feel like you're running low, like we've kind of turned this into a nice yellowy orange mush. I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit more orange. And then we can do the same exact thing that we did before, where we just use just a little bit of the water. I'm going to go ahead and use this again, just so you can see what it looks like. So you guys can see a little bit more what we're doing. We're just going to go ahead and pick it up and roll it on. And that gives us the orange back in there as well. And if you just really lightly tap it, you get a little bit more of the actual little dot splatters instead of it kind of forming into that more watercolor sort of look. What's the ink on? So this is a craft sheet from Ranger, but I've heard people that, read that people in the chat are using wax paper or I think someone said parchment paper maybe. Possibly like a glass mat would definitely work as well. All you need is just something that's a non-porous surface so that the ink isn't going to soak into it. You want that ink to sit on top so that you can pick it up and then put it onto your background. I love it. All right, so I'm going to set that one aside. And you can see this area here is still those first 4 ink pad smushes that we did. So we're using next to no product here. So you can ink smush to your heart's content forever. And it's not going to use up all of your supplies. This is such a good way to get beautiful backgrounds that you can use for everything. And you're using basically no product. It's just you have so much left that you're going to be able to use over and over and over again. The other nice thing is that you are able to change up the color palette. So can you get a deliberate pattern, say like floral impressions? You could if you, well, so it depends. I think you could probably use a paintbrush and sort of manipulate the colors that way. Or you could also probably use a stamp. And you can either pick up so like we're going to be using this stamp later in black. This one is a little bit more detailed, so it might not work super well just because it will have that watercolor effect, but you could stamp directly into that's upside down, but you could stamp directly into the ink and then apply that to your card. But again, it's going to be more of a loose watercolor sort of effect. So something that has a lot of detail probably wouldn't work really well, but something that was more solid probably would work really well. You could do it that way, or you could do your background here and then spritz water onto your stamp and then stamp it. And then the oxides would react with the water and do sort of a lifted impression. So it would sort of make it fade into the background a little bit. So you have options. But you can see we're still using up this same ink from when we first did it. I'm just going to go ahead and smear it, literally just cleaning it up. I'm not wasting a single drop, but you can see it gives you different looks depending on how you pick it up. So again, though, we have a lot more yellow here than we have orange. So I am going to go ahead and add a little bit of orange in there as well. I want to pick up all of that ink that we've got. All right. And then I think I'll add just a little bit more. All right, there we go. I'm going to add a little bit more of the orange, and then I'm going to change things up just a little bit and add just a touch of brown. So this brown color that I'm using here is called Vintage Photo, and we're going to use this to stamp onto our backgrounds once they're ready to go. But I'm just going to use a little touch here to kind of change up our color palette a little bit. We're going to go ahead and spritz those with water, same as we did before, and then just plop them right in. So you can see now we're getting a little bit of the brown. And like I was saying before, I think the nice thing about this is that all of them are completely different. You're probably never going to get two that look exactly the same ever. And I think that's beautiful. I just think it's so cool that you can create so many unique backgrounds with this one technique, and they just look so nice. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put the orange down here. Pick up our extras. We've got our brown. And we're going to be stamping over this once it's dry. So we are able to let those colors kind of sit on the top. What do you use to wash the ink from your hands? Soap and water. Yes. Soap and water works really well for me. Sometimes it does. You can see I've got a little bit of yellow on my finger and my thumb. Sometimes it does hang around for a little while, but it will fade pretty much right away since it does react with the water. Maybe Patty has, I don't know if she has like a specific, do they have cleaning instructions on them? They might. I don't think so. I was just going to say, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, soap and water usually works good.
Oh, perfect.
A little, a couple times.
Okay. I don't mind the inky fingers most times, but All right, I'm gonna go ahead and just use a paper towel to clean up my little piece of plastic here. And this is just like a scrap from some sort of packaging, but I just keep them. I keep it on my desk just to use. So you can use anything that you have on hand that will work. Something clear is nice if you want to be able to see what you're doing.
Does she have some more questions?
What did you do with the brown? So the same thing, the brown, I just smushed it directly onto the mat and spritzed it with water. And it kind of mixed in with the orange a little bit here. But you can see that it has a darker tone to it than these ones. So these ones are more bright orange and yellow, and this one has a little bit of a darker sort of rusty kind of look to it. And that is from the brown. That's really quick and easy cleanup. Yes, it really is. What exactly is Distress Oxide? So Distress Oxide is an ink pad. You can stamp with it. So it's is it felt? Is that what the ink pad? It's not felt.
Yeah.
It is felt? Okay. I thought I was saying the wrong word. So it's a felt ink pad. You can stamp directly on this. So you would use your stamp and then just tap it into the ink pad, and it stamps really, really well. But it is a formula that's made up of a mixture of pigment ink and dye ink. And they are water reactive. So they work really, really well for techniques as well as stamping, and amazing for ink blending as well. But yeah, so I've used, if anyone was looking for the colors that we're using here, it's mustard seed, spiced marmalade, and then the brown was vintage photo. So those are the colors that we're using today. Nice fall colors. It really reminds me of the fall foliage outside. The leaves here are finally changing colors. I don't know if you guys are getting any pretty fall colors in your area or if they're already gone by now, but we're only just now starting to get them here. They do clean up really easy and really well, and baby wipes work perfectly as well. Yep. Yes. All right, so now that we've had a little bit more time for our ink to dry over here, our panel is still wet, but not rolling liquid wet. If you wanted to, you could definitely take a heat tool and dry this thoroughly just to make sure that it is completely dry before you stamp on it. I'm living life on the edge, and I'm just gonna go ahead and stamp right onto it. The only thing that you want to pay attention to is that when you are using a black ink over top of a Distress Oxide product, you are going to want to make sure you use something that is archival. We're going to be using the black archival ink from Ranger for this. If you don't use something that is water resistant or not affected by water, it will fade into the colors here. It will cause that, if you're using a water-based ink, it will cause that oxidized reaction, and it will fade and make your black ink look sort of gray. You want to use an archival ink. We're going to use that black ink from Ranger. I'm going to grab that here. Oh, Lord. Here we go. Okay. So we've got our black ink. It's just a regular ink pad, but this one does not react with water the same way the Distress Oxides do. It's an archival ink, and here on the front it says acid-free, permanent, and waterproof, which is exactly what we need. I like how the brown intensifies the orange and yellow. Yes, absolutely. And the cool thing is that by mixing and matching the amounts of color or pigment you're using here, you can really get an almost endless variety of color combinations and hues. And you just find which ones you like better. And then you can keep doing those, or just keep experimenting, change up the color palettes and use this sort of design all year round. I am a sucker for a good rainbow. And Distress Oxides are amazing for doing those as well. All right, so we have 3 panels here. We're going to go ahead and start working with them. What we're going to do is stamp in the black with this. However, before we do that, I'm going to use this Manuscript wooden stamp from Michaels. This is a Recollections brand. So this is a wood-mounted rubber stamp. And we're going to go ahead and stamp this directly onto our background. In order to do that, I'm going to use the vintage photo. So remember how I was talking about how they stamp really well? They're beautiful. They give you that nice crisp impression, even with something as delicate and intricate as this stamped design. But I like the more rustic and sort of vintage look, and that's what I'm going to be going for here. I'm not going to ink up the entire thing. So you're going to see, I will tap the edges here. It doesn't look like anything is happening, but the ink is on there, I promise. If you turn it just slightly, you can see it sort of glistens. The ink is on there. I'm inking up that little corner. I'm going to come over here and ink a little bit. I'm sort of turning the ink pad at an angle as I'm doing it so that I'm not getting a square impression. I just lift up one side a little bit, and that allows me to put ink in concentrated areas. So then what I'm going to do is take this. I'm actually going to turn it sideways like this. Double check that I've remembered to use the smooth side, which I did. Woohoo. And then we are perfect and ready to go The class started at 4 p.m. So if you did miss anything from the beginning, you can definitely catch the replay. It will be live in about 24 hours on the Michaels website, or I'm sorry, on the Michaels YouTube channel. And then it will also be available within about 48 hours on the Michaels website as well. So if you miss anything at all, don't worry, you'll be able to go back and catch it again. I'm going to go ahead and tap this directly onto my background here. And you can see, because I didn't ink up the whole thing, we've got some missing spots here, and that's exactly what I'm going for. So you can see that scripty look there. And we're just getting some random bits and pieces here and there. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then you can just go back in, add a little bit of ink here and there. I'm going to go ahead and kind of go off the side a little bit like that. I'm going to come right over onto this side and do the same thing. So you can see then that just like that, we have this amazing sort of distressed, old looking background that's perfect to use for our card panels. So I'm going to leave that one like that. I'm really happy with the way that that one looks. So that's perfect. And then we'll go ahead and pull this one. But you can see, I don't know if you can tell, it is faded just a little bit because my panel is still a little bit damp. If this were completely dry and I stamped the Distress Oxide over top, it wouldn't fade. But because it is still a little bit wet, then it does fade just a little bit. But if it's dry, you won't have that happen. I really like how the Oxide stamp as well. I think that they're beautiful. They're just really, really versatile inks. I like them a lot. All right, this one is still a little bit more wet. So what I'm actually going to do is just take a clean paper towel and I'm just gonna lay that right on top because I want to get rid of any standing water. I don't want to have anything that's completely liquid that's still moving around on my background here. So I've just used a clean paper towel. I'll set this aside and I'll be able to use this again if we need to. But yep, that just collects up any of the excess water. Yeah, of course. I'm really excited that you guys are participating and having fun, getting some ideas going. I hope that you guys are going to make some fall cards with us. A good way to drive friends and family crazy if they try to read what it says. Yes, I'm guilty. When I got this stamp, I actually sat there like, can I read this? And I couldn't. But it's a beautiful stamp. I absolutely love stuff like this just because of the versatility of it. You can use it to make pretty much anything look elegant and fancy, and I'm a fan. Went straight to Christmas. Yes, definitely. Use Christmas colors. If you're skipping fall or you've already done fall, that's okay. Use the Christmas colors. I'm here for it. All right, so we've got this one all done and look at it. It's just so rustic and fun. I absolutely love these. And then we've got one more panel here to go ahead and ink up. I'm going to use my paper towel a little bit here. I've got just a touch of that ink that is a little bit too wet for my liking. Perfect. So you see this effect here where it's really, really faded. That is the epitome of the Distress Oxides. So that is the oxidized look that you get with those Distress Oxides. But the amount of water you use varies and changes how oxidized they look. So it may be something as simple as it's just a faded of the original color, or you can get it to look like this depending on how much water you've used. What colors would you use to do something similar for a Christmas themed card? Like a specific, are you looking for a specific color name? I would probably do, it depends on what you're going for. I like the rustic Christmas cards, so you could really do like grays and browns together. Yeah, don't use green and red. You do want to use colors that blend nicely together. I'm going to look really quick behind me. What I would suggest is if you were going to go with the traditional like red and green pattern or palette, I would go with a variation of greens in the background. So you'll have like a dark and a light, and then use those to combine and mix up with each other. And then you can do the same thing for red. Now, the only thing I will warn you about with red is sometimes it can look a little gory if you use red on a background with this sort of smushy, spattery effect. And it may not be what you're looking for with a Christmas card, but for sure you can try it. I have sometimes not been super happy with the results that I have when I do just reds, but if you did something where you've mixed like maybe aged mahogany would be a good color to mix with a brighter red, and then add in some either like a darker brown or a lighter pinkish sort of red and kind of mix those colors together, then you might get a better result. But definitely just experiment and see which colors work best for you. But I think as far as green goes, I would probably do a combination of mowed lawn and this one, pine needles. So this one's pine needles and then mowed lawn. So they don't look like they go together, but once you start mixing them up and you add that water, I think those would be beautiful together. Are pastels best to use? It depends on what kind of look you're going for. I think you can pretty much use any of the colors and they work beautifully together. It just depends on what end result you want to go with. What kinds of paper for this type of effect? Oh, no worries at all. So what we're using is the Distress Watercolor Cardstock. You want something that can take water. This is a heavyweight paper that's good for wet techniques. So this is perfect. It has a rough or textured side and a smooth side. We're using the smooth side today, but you can definitely use the textured side as well. All right, so we're going to do this one last panel here. We're going to go ahead and get stamping. So again, this is the vintage photo. Yep, no worries, Robin. I'm happy to help. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and stamp that directly on. I was a little more, I don't know what the word is there, but I guess solid. I was a little more solid there. So I'm going to try to make this side less so that we still have some empty spaces here. What colors would you use for ocean, undersea? Those are my favorite types of cards to make with Distress Oxide backgrounds. I am really in love with peacock feathers, salty ocean, and cracked pistachio. Those three colors work beautifully together. If you want something darker, you can definitely use Blueprint Sketch. Let's see, Blueprint Sketch. And then Tumbled Glass is a very light. So you could do Blueprint Sketch, even Faded Jeans. Let's be honest, all of the blues are beautiful. They all work really well together. If you want that sort of like sea green ocean sort of feel, I would go with Peacock Feathers, Cracked Pistachio, or maybe even Mermaid Lagoon would be a good one too. That one's beautiful. All right, so we are all done here with our panels. Have you guys gotten your panels all done and stamped? I can't wait to see everything you guys are making. Perfect. Patty, thank you so much for your help, and Felicia as well. I really appreciate you guys. Yes, Janetta, absolutely. You could definitely do a blue, like a pale blue mix as well. That would be really pretty for some elegant Christmas cards as well. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to stamp out our thanks onto our backgrounds. What I'm going to do is just ink the stamp up first. I'm going to leave it flat on the desk just because I feel like I get the best results that way. And you can see the ink being added there. See how it's nice and shiny, but up here it's a little dull. That means I haven't gotten that spot yet. So it's nice to be able to look and see which areas are still needing some ink. So you just tap the ink pad directly on there. You don't need to swipe or twist, really, you can just tap directly down onto the ink pad. If you do swipe or twist, sometimes you will get the texture of that movement in your ink, and that will show up when you go to do your stamping. If you like that, you can definitely use that as a technique, but if you're going for a solid image, it can definitely be better to just go ahead and tap it. It's upside down. Make sure that your stamp is the right way. At this point, it doesn't really matter because we haven't put it on a card yet, but I am queen of putting things on the wrong direction. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp this directly onto my background here. I'm going to try to hold it nice and still so that it doesn't move around or shift. But while it's being held down, I'm just going to run my fingers across here to make sure that I get a nice smooth impression. Just applying that pressure helps make sure that the ink transfers onto the background. And there we have our stamped image. Now, this is a little bit splotchy, and that is because my panel is still a little wet. If you guys wait and have a dried panel here, it's not going to be splotchy like this. But because mine is a little bit wet, it has a harder time adhering to those areas. But on these ones here, my samples, when I actually waited until they were dry, we've got a nice crisp impression there as well. So there's that. All right, so we've done one side. You could leave this plain, put this on a card and be done. I'm gonna go ahead and stamp another one on this side. Now I will show you another thing you can do as well, which is, I'll probably do it on one of these so I don't mess this one up just because I've already stamped on this side. But if you go ahead and lay your ink pad or your stamp down on the mat here, we're gonna go ahead and stamp it up just the same way. I like to put my finger in the middle because I feel like that helps me get a better coverage with the ink, but you can definitely hold it however is comfortable for you. We're gonna go ahead and make sure our whole ink pad is covered in ink. And then let's do it on this one. I'm just going to grab this. I'm going to flip it over like this and then line it up, press down like this. And then you can smooth it this way. So this is just personal preference, whatever you prefer, whichever way works best for you or you like better. You can definitely do it either way. You could also use a brayer or something like that on the top. Or honestly, you could probably use the ink pad, the ink pad itself, and just smooth it like this. Just anything that lets you rub without moving the background around, just to get that smooth, even coverage on the background there. And there you can see, even though this panel was more wet, I feel like we got better coverage. And that's beautiful. I really love the way that that looks. All right, so you can see there's two options. You can either flip it over and stamp directly on it, or you can flip it so that the ink, the stamp is on the bottom and you put your paper onto it. The distress ink pads to do it, less slippage, yes. So that's perfect. We've got that there. Awesome. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and keep stamping. I'm gonna do one more on this side, one more on this side, and then I am going to do a couple that are smaller with another little sentiment stamp that I snagged as well, which is perfect for fall. So I'm gonna go ahead and stamp this one over here. Ooh. All right. And again, just applying that even pressure. You could also slide it like this if you felt like you weren't sure. Just hold it in place, flip it right over, and then smooth it this way. Again, whatever you feel like is the best option, whatever gives you the best results, definitely do that. So now we've got two strips that we can use on our cards. And I just realized that I should have turned one of them this way to use on our vertical card. So let's go ahead and do that one. And then this section we'll use for our tags. So I'm going to go ahead and ink that up again. Okay. And then instead of doing it sideways like this, we're going to turn it this direction. And I'm going to stamp it somewhere in the middle-ish. It doesn't have to be perfect. But again, if you feel like you're not getting a good result or it seems hard for you to push from the top like that, just slide it while it's still in place, flip it over, and then you can apply that pressure this way. Yay! Keep sharing your projects. All right. So now we've got our stamped images all ready to go. What I'm going to do is pull out my paper trimmer. So this one is a Fisker's paper trimmer that you can snag at Michael's. And I'm just going to go ahead and trim off the edges here. So I'm going to make it so that my floral bit is not cut off. So I am at, I believe, 3 inches here, but you can definitely modify this whatever thickness you want. If you cut a little bit of the floral design off, that is absolutely okay as well. Nice to know I'm not the only one still stamping. I love stamping also. Most of my cards are stamped. But so this is the measurement for the original piece of cardstock was 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So this is 4 1/4 by 3 now. So now we've got our piece here that we can put onto our card base. That's ready to go onto a card. We're going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to trim these down. So I'm going to end up cutting a little bit off of each side here, a little bit of the floral images because they're cut closely together, but that's okay. We're going to go ahead and cut just like this. My blade is a little bit dull, so I'm getting a little bit of fuzzies here. If that happens to you, you can just run your finger along the edge like this and it smooths them down and no one will ever know that it's there. I just need to replace my blade. But yes, you can definitely do that. There's another one that's ready to go. And again, here we've got a little bit of the fuzzies going on. We can just smooth that. If you want to, you can use a pair of scissors and kind of like just snip off the edges, but I don't find that it's worth the time to do that just because using your finger just like that makes it look like it's a perfect cut as well. No one will ever know. So that's that one. We do still have our sheet here that's ready to go for some tags. And then an emery board. Yes, that's a good idea, Jerry. Thank you so much. I didn't think of that. That's a great idea. Paper cuts are no good. You're right. I'm going to go ahead and cut this one down as well. I love that this one has more orange in it. It's so bright and colorful. I'm going to go ahead and trim that. And now we have this piece extra that we can use again. And I am being very gentle. I haven't gotten a paper cut yet, but you're probably right. Better safe than sorry. And there you have it. There is another strip. So we can use all of these to put directly onto our cards. And then these ones we can actually use and cut our own tags. So this is another Recollections wood stamp. This one says there is always something to be thankful for. Totally optional. You don't have to use this, but if you have these scraps that you would like to use, you can definitely use them up by stamping directly onto them. I wonder if this, it's a little too short. I was hoping that the width would have been wide enough, but it was a little too short. That's okay. We'll still get several little tags out of these. Yes, a bookmark would be a great idea. Now this is going a different direction, but that's okay. I don't think it will really matter in the end. And I'm just going to go ahead and stamp that. Always something to be thankful for. Look how beautiful that is. Ooh. I just love the way that looks. And then we'll go ahead and stamp another one down here. And it's okay if they're crooked. Mine are a little wonky. You can just trim them to be the right angle there. We'll go ahead and do another one here. I'll try to get it close to the side so I can see. I might be able to fit 2, but I'm not sure yet. We're going to go ahead and stamp that one. So pretty. Had the oxides for a long time and didn't use them. Jane, absolutely. I am a huge fan of distress oxides. I use them in practically every project that I make. So I have definitely got my use and my money out of them. I think they're an amazing investment. These are a little close. Don't be like me. But we're going to go ahead and trim them down anyway. We're going to find a way to make it work. So what I think we're going to do is trim this way. We're going to go ahead and line it up. And like I said, you can kind of angle these so that they fit and work for what you're trying to do. Let's see. I'm going to go, normally I don't start from the top, but I'm going to go ahead and start from the top on this one. And then just cut along the bottom there. What I'm going to do is use my scissors to just do the end part here. So we've got a mostly straight line there. I'm going to go ahead and go to right about there. And then I'm going to angle my scissors like this. We're going to cut it like that. And then I'm going to cut it like this. I'm going to do the same on this side so that we end up with a cute little tag effect. And then I'm going to go ahead and trim that off here at the side. And just make sure your tag's actually straight. So there you've got your cute little tag. You can add this to a gift. Super, super cute. And then that way we didn't waste any paper. So this wouldn't be an issue as far as like having to trim them this way if I hadn't stamped them so closely together. But there's usually a way to make it work and save yourself the paper and all the supplies and all of that, so you're not wasting much. You can definitely still get your good use out of all of the products. All right, we're going to go ahead and line this up so that we can cut. I'm just making sure that I'm not cutting off the top of the sentiment there. All right. And now we have another cute little tag. And these are perfect. You could put them on place settings for Thanksgiving dinner or on like a little gift bag or any of your fall decor. This would just be the cutest little addition. And it's so simple. And we're basically just using scraps from these products that we've already done here. So there's those, super cute. Let's go ahead and trim these ones as well. Don't forget those. This is a great class. Thank you so much. Great. Yes. Reminder for a project for a stamp swap. Ooh, all the techniques are quick and lead to success. Yes, absolutely. Especially distress inks. Yes. I love all of the distress products. I was a huge fan of the distress inks first, and I still love them. And then distress oxides came along and I was like, I probably don't need those. And then I got some and here we are. Now I have the whole collection because I couldn't resist. Are you putting one of the thanks on a card? Yes, absolutely. So these 3 panels, in just 1 second, we're going to go ahead and apply those to our card bases. And then we will be good to go. All right, here we are. Trimming off the little excess bits here. Okay. And now, depending on what you want to do, you can even leave them long like this. If you want to attach these to something, I have my Crop-A-Dile here, which was on the supply list, or any hole punch. This is a heavy duty tool. You don't have to use something this crazy. But if you want to, you can use this. It's a fancy hole punch. Literally you just pop it right in there, squeeze, and then it's a hole punch. But it has different sizes that you can use if you want to have a smaller hole or a larger. Can you repost the watercolor papers? Yes. So the Distress watercolor cardstock, and I think Patty or Felicia will help us with the link. But yes, this is the Distress watercolor cardstock that we are using here for the card. Crop-A-Dile also sets eyelets. Yes, Jane, you are so right. It's not just a hole punch. But for me, I generally speaking use it mostly like a hole punch. So I'm a little close to the edge over here. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and punch it on this side, but it's totally up to you how you want to do it. I think this is still perfect, but you can see, you can make it your own. And the nice thing is that out of all of those panels, this is the amount that we've wasted. That's it. These tiny little scraps. And I bet that you could still find something to do with these if you wanted to throw them in your scrap bin, if you're like me and you have one of those. But yeah, this is all we've wasted, is just this tiny itty bitty little bit here. Little flags, yes. You could collage, yes, absolutely. So this is the waste, but you can definitely still use this, and we're not, you know, losing out on any of that. And then let's see, we've got our card bases here as well. All right, so these are the white card bases that come in a set from Michaels. So they come in a set with the card bases, which are A2 size card bases, and envelopes as well. So they come in a set together. So you can go ahead and put your cards nice and finished all together, and then you've got an envelope ready to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these strips. I'm going to use a tape runner from Recollections. All we have to do is just open that up here, and we've got the tape exposed on the bottom. I'm going to flip my card panel over and just run that along the side here. I'm going to put a little on this side as well. For good measure, I like to just put a little bit in the center, not anything too crazy. And look how quickly this comes together. So you spend your time having fun, getting inky, putting your cards, your backgrounds together, and then you just plop it right on the card and it's finished. It's beautiful and it's ready to go. So that's one. And then we've got another card base here. Great prices on sets. Yes, absolutely. Yep. I have really enjoyed being here with you guys. So it's nice for me to see you guys popping in and saying that you've been enjoying the class as well. I've had a blast. So again, just a little bit of tape on the back there. If you're like me, double check and make sure that you're putting it on, that it's not upside down. I can't tell you how many times I have put the card front on the wrong way and then it's upside down. So just make sure your card is the right direction and then go ahead and plop it right on. There we go. All right. And then now we've got another card here. So very similar, but you've got two different directions that you can go with that. And then we'll just go ahead and finish off the rest of them, because who can't use fall cards? I know I can use them. So I'm going to go ahead and put our adhesive on the back again. Yes, absolutely. I'm really glad that you guys were able to make it and that everyone has been enjoying and sharing their projects. I'm really excited. All right, there's another one just like that. And our last one here. There we go. Getting our tape right on the back there, a little bit in the center. And then we'll go ahead and put this right on. And that finishes off our cards. Oh my goodness. And I do also have Twine in case you guys want to add in your tags to your completed projects. The length doesn't really matter, but this is just kind of like a canvas sort of, it's a really soft twine. And then you just, I fold it over like this so that the ends are meeting here on the end. You've got a little loop here on the end. You put both of these through the hole like this, feed them through, keep a hold, not like that, keep a hold of this end here, and then you're going to open that up, grab it with your finger like this, and then just loop it through. And then now you've got your tag all ready to attach to something. Super easy, no fancy bow tying required. And that's that. So we can go ahead and put another one on here. You can change the length depending on how long you need the tag or the twine to be. But yeah. Yes, distress minis are awesome for crafting on the go. I really do love the minis as well. Yep. There we go. We've got our nice tags here as well. We could punch these also, but yeah, yep. We've got all of our cards and our tags, our bonus tags with our scraps ready to go there, and all of our cards as well. I hope that you guys had an amazing time in the class today. I'm going to go ahead and switch back to my other view here so I can wrap things up and say goodbye. I can't believe that we are finished already. The class went by in just a heartbeat. I can't believe it's already been an hour. I hope you guys really had an amazing time today. If you have questions or anything, like I said, the videos will be available on the Michaels website or the Michaels YouTube channel within about 24 hours. And then the Michaels website will have the replay as well. in about 48 hours. So you guys can always go back and watch it again if there was anything you had questions on. And then on the YouTube video, of course, you can pop questions in there as well. If you guys are interested in catching up with me outside of class, you can find me on Instagram at A Card Day's Work. And then I have my YouTube channel, which is under the same name, A Card Day's Work. Again, my name is Jess Francisco. It has been amazing to be here with you. Patty, did you have anything?
There was just one more question.
Sure.
Can you color in a flower with those Copic ink pens on top of the Distress Oxide pigment ink? And I don't use Copic, so I'm not really sure. So I can't
Yeah, so the Copics are a little tricky. They are alcohol based. So because they're not water based, they won't react with the ink. However, I have had some issues using Copics on top of the Distress inks because they do have that sort of chalky almost finish, especially if it's ink blended. If it's already been oxidized or it's already been mixed with water, you have better results. If it hasn't been mixed with water and it's just the ink that you've blended onto a piece of cardstock, I probably wouldn't use the Copics because it sucks the ink out of it. They dry up extremely quickly, and it just doesn't give the best results. They do kind of fade back into it a little bit, but you could definitely try it. I haven't had good results with it. Could you use Tombow pens to color in stuff? You can. Tombow pens are water-based. So if you color on top of your background here with a water base, a pen or marker, it's going to react again with the water. So it may cause reactions on the background that you may not want. If you want that, or if you want to do, like you could probably do a lift technique with a clear blender pen from Tombow, because that is water-based and that would work. And then you could also use stamps to lift the color off if you used water on the stamp instead of an ink. Do you have recommendations of ink for a color copied card? I'm not sure what you mean by a color copied card. Are you able to give me a little bit more information? I'm not sure. Recommendations of ink for a color copied card. Like a print, like from the printer, or I'm not sure. Paint markers. Yes, paint markers would be great. Paint markers would be an awesome option to use over top because they're going to sit on top and not react and blend in with the inks again. What's the name of your YouTube channel? It's A Card Day's Work. I wish I had something to even show you that had it on it so that it would be easier. But oh, I could probably type it in the chat. Hold on. Oh, thank you. Yep. So the YouTube channel is A Card Day's Work. And then without any spaces or punctuation, just A Card Day's Work all smushed together is my Instagram handle. Yep. When I go to that address, there doesn't seem to be a place that lists recordings. I think that all of the recordings of the Michaels classes are available. You may be looking at the upcoming classes. So let me see. I may be able to.
Michaels.com/classes.
Oh, okay. Michaels.com/classes. Let's see the recordings. Okay, so on that page, when you go to michaels.com/classes, if you scroll down just a little bit, there's a place that says recent classes, and all of those recordings will be listed down below there. So you should be able to see those when they pop up. You can also search by category there as well. So those will all be there and ready for you to look. Ours would be under paper crafting, I imagine. I think that's probably where it would be. Oh, awesome. Thanks you guys so much. And as always, like I said, if you guys have any questions, you can always reach out and let me know. Or like I said, on the YouTube video, once it's posted on the Michaels YouTube channel, you can pop over there and say hi and ask any questions that you have. For finished classes, perfect. Yes. Yes, agreed, Jane. Yep, you want to make sure your panels are thoroughly dry before adding the ink on top. Yep. Thanks for not rushing at the end. No worries at all. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have. Yes. Hi, Cricket. You need to pull out your stamps. Awesome. Clean the stamps. I think that's safe for long term. Yes. Yep. You can definitely clean your stamps after the fact, just to give them a nice clean at the end. There is a good idea to keep them ready to go for the longer period of time. Yep. All right. If no one else has questions, I will go ahead and wrap up and end here. But it has been amazing hanging out with all of you guys the last hour. I really, really had a wonderful time. And I hope you guys did as well. Thank you all so much again. I will hopefully see you guys again really soon in another class. And I hope that you guys all have a great rest of the week. Thanks so much.